All right, we're in the period between Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, and Rosh Hashanah, which is known as the time of comfort, the season of comfort. Last Shabbat was Shabbat Nachamu, which is the Shabbat of comfort. So this is the season of comfort. It's 7 weeks, and you have 7 readings from the Haftarot, all with the theme of comfort leading up to Rosh Hashanah. So the commandment is that we're supposed to comfort each other during this time, offer each other words of comfort because of the destruction of the temple. So I'd like to see everybody doing that. Instead, what we're doing as a Jewish community is arguing and fighting, which is sort of our normal mode of operation. So you should take a break from that at least once a day and comfort a fellow Jew if you see a fellow Jew.
Great tradition.
Yeah. But another thing we're supposed to do is study the passages in the Talmud that describe the destruction of the temple. And also study, of course, on Tisha B'Av, we studied the entire book of Lamentations, which describes the destruction of the first temple. But the Talmud also includes destructions of the second temple, and both happen on the 9th of Av, or Tisha B'Av. So today, and it may go into next week too, we're going to study some of the stories. There's lots of stories in the Talmud about the destruction of not just Jerusalem, but Jewish sovereignty in the year 70, in and around the year 70, with the revolt against Rome. And so we're definitely going to take this for 2 or maybe even 3 weeks. We'll go through these stories, and then there's one other story. I don't know how long it's going to take. What we're going to start with is 3 stories. There are 4 major stories in the Talmud. There's lots of little stories, but there's 4 major stories in the Talmud about the destruction of Jerusalem and the outlying areas, Judah and Jewish sovereignty. We're just going to study 3. The first is the most famous, so we're not going to study that. The first is the one where Yochanan ben Zakkai sneaks out of Jerusalem and really kind of tricks the Romans into allowing him to have the city of Yavne, where he rebuilds the Jewish life anyway. It's not sovereign life, but Jewish life in the city of Yavne by having scholars come and develop the oral law, develop the Talmud and the Mishnah. And I'll just point out the clever play on words of Yavne. So Yavne... So one meaning of it is yibaneh, which means to build, so it's rebuilding. If you spell it slightly differently, it's also from the root yavan, which means Greece. And remember, the Romans represented Greco-Roman civilization. And so what Yochanan ben Zakkai was doing in Yavne was by accepting Greco-Roman rule and authority, because they were winning the war anyway, they're going to win it. So he went to a Greco-Roman city, and within the Greco-Roman Empire was able to rebuild Jewish life. So you have rebuild, and you also have the Greco-Roman Empire, meaning that he was able to teach us how to exist in exile. So that's the importance of the Yochanan ben Zakkai story. It's a wonderful story, and I've taught it many times, so I'm not teaching it right now. But one of the morals is that it's possible to develop a full Jewish life in exile, even in the Greco-Roman culture, which is destroying us and destroying our temple. It's possible to build some kind of Jewish life if you have the right tools. And the story is about what are the right tools. Okay, but we're going to study not that story, but 3 other stories which describe causes for the destruction, the Great Destruction. And of course, one of the interesting themes that develop when you study these stories is that the rabbis in the Talmud really never place the blame for the Great Destruction on the people who really did it, which are the Romans, the Roman Empire, who viciously, and you'll see the descriptions, they don't mince words in describing how vicious the Romans were, but they put the blame on internal Jewish divisions, what they call sinat chinam. Sinat chinam means causes hatred, internal hatred, rivalries within the Jewish community that didn't allow us sufficient strength and centrality to be able to resist whatever crisis we were facing. So we're going to read 3 stories which focus on what we'll call micro reasons for a total and utter collapse of the Jewish civilization there. And one of the questions we're going to ask ourselves as we're reading this is what motivates these storytellers to look at the small picture and almost totally ignore the big picture. Right? So remember, the big picture is a big oppressive empire that's occupying a spiritually strong sovereign people. And if you're looking at the big picture, you're thinking, well, that's not going to last, because the spiritually strong people are going to resist that occupation, and inevitably there's going to be a war. But so that's the big picture. the systemic picture. And the rabbis, for some reason, don't focus on the big picture at all. They do a little bit in the Yochanan ben Zakkai story, although that's about internal divisions too. But in these stories, it's always these little things, little misunderstandings, little humiliations, and they lead to this almost cosmic destruction. All right, enough introduction. We're going to read the first story. What I have for you is the English and the Hebrew in that order. I'm just going to read the it's not Hebrew, it's Aramaic. It's Talmud language. I'm going to read it in Talmud language. You can follow however you want. You can follow in the Aramaic or you have the English. It's Sonsino English. It's this old 19th century translation. That's all I've got. So for me, the Hebrew is much easier than this bulky English. But for me and here, you'll get the point, I hope. Okay? Kamsa ubar kamsa charuv Yerushalayim. Jerusalem was destroyed because of a Kamsa and a Bar Kamsa. It turns out, as the story goes on, these are names of people. One guy's name is Kamsa, the other is Bar Kamsa. By the way, this is a fairly famous story, fairly well-known story too. So one guy's name was Kamsa, the other was Bar Kamsa, but the word kometz means a very little bit, like a tiny handful of something. So it's also kind of a play on words. It's basically saying because of a tiny, almost trivial matter, Jerusalem was destroyed. Okay, go on. Atarnagola Vitarnagolta, Charuv Tur Malka. The town of Tur Malka in the Judean hills no longer exists, but an important Jewish center was destroyed because of a chicken and a rooster. And it's a similar idea, just in that little sentence, that because of something trivial, this entire town was destroyed. One other thing, Ashka de Rispak, because of a leather shaft. A leather shaft is a small little thing that you can use it for all sorts of things, but in context here you'll see it's what are those cabs called that actually they still use them today, like in a coach, and there would be human horses that would carry the emperor and what's it called?
Hansom?
A hansom? Yeah, I don't yeah. So in a horse-drawn carriage they would use leather straps to hold the carriage itself, but here they're talking about human-drawn carriages where they would use leather straps to kind of hold the thing together. So because of a single leather strap, Charuv Beitar. Beitar was destroyed. Beitar you may have heard of. Now it's a famous soccer team in Israel, but it was a town also in the Judean hills that the Romans destroyed and massacred everybody only because of a leather strap. Okay, so that's the headline to the story. And again, the idea is that because of triviality, small little things, handfuls of things, it was all destroyed, leading us to maybe suspect as we go through this that if it weren't for these little issues, maybe Jerusalem never would have been destroyed. Maybe. So right away it's saying, don't look at the big systemic issues. What caused the Civil War? All the systemic issues, slavery and the lack of a central economy. No, it was because of little humiliations here and there, little pinpricks, and ultimately it all fell apart. That's kind of that's the historiography, which of course is counterintuitive, not the way that we're used to studying history, and I think right away makes us think. Okay, let's go on. All right, now it goes to a Kamsa ubar Kamsa charuv Yerushalayim. Because of a Kamsa and a Bar Kamsa, Jerusalem was destroyed. Now it tells you the story. First story. Story number 1. Dahu Gavra, the Rachme Kamsa, ubal devave Bar Kamsa. Okay, so there was a guy. He liked a person named Kamsa. Rachme means he liked or he loved. He had a fondness for a guy named Kamsa. Ubal devave, but he was enemies with. Now it's an interesting way of saying enemies because bal devave meant that they had bad words for each other. They had nasty arguments. So it was a guy that he had nasty arguments with, but it's also just a phrase that means he was an enemy with a person named Bar Kamsa. Notice the similarity of the names. Similarity of the names are very important here in the story. He liked Kamsa, didn't like Bar Kamsa. Avad Su'udata. He had a Su'uda. A party, right. The Su'udah is a Su'udah. We still use that, like Shal Shudas, right? the third meal. Su'udah is a big celebratory party meal. So he had a party. Amar le Shma'e. He said to his secretary, Shma'e is his servant, his assistant, Ziel aite li Kamsa. Invite Kamsa to my party. Go and bring Kamsa. Azal aite le Bar Kamsa. But he brought Bar Kamsa. It's a simple mistake. He heard Kamsa and he goes and he looks in his GPS and he finds Bar Kamsa instead. It's almost the same name. It's just two letters. So he invites Bar Kamsa. So the enemy comes to his party. Okay. Turn the page. Well, in the Hebrew we're turning the page. In the English it's still on the same page. Ata ashkache dehu yatif. So now is at the party, And we never learn, actually, interesting, we never learn the host of the party's name. The host of the party sees his enemy sitting there. Amarle says to him, Mikdei dahahu gavra bal devave, dahahu gavrahu, my bai hacha. And he says, this guy, and it seems like he's talking to him, but he doesn't want to say you. He says, because this guy is my enemy, my bal devava. I'm not sure how they translate it. It's really subtle in the Hebrew, because you are someone with whom I have bad words with, but because you say bad things about me, okay, and you say bad things about Gavrahu, me, this guy over here says bad things about this guy. Notice where I'm pointing, okay? In other words, I don't like you, but I don't like you because you say bad things about me. My bayacha, what are you doing at my party? What is this enemy doing at my party? Kum puk, get up and leave. So he tells him, you have to leave. I didn't. It's not just that I didn't invite you. We don't like each other, and you say bad things about me. Amarle ho'il va'atai shivakan. Look, he says back to him, look, I'm here, so let me stay. So what's he worried about?
Saving face.
He wants to save face. So if he leaves and it's obvious that he's being expelled from the party, that will make him look bad. It doesn't make the other guy look so great either, by the way. So let's not have a scene. I'm here, I'll stay. Okay? The yahivna lach demei my da'achana v'shatina, and I will pay you for whatever I eat and drink. Okay, so I won't be your guest. It's just let's not have a scene and make me leave. Amar le lo. He says to him, no, you have to leave. Amar le yahivna lach demei palka desudaitech. I will pay for half of the party if you let me stay. Now it's starting to seem really unreasonable for the host to say, well, he says, Amar le lo. And he says, no, even if you pay for half the party, I don't want you in my house. Amar le yahivna lech demei kule seudatech. I will pay for the entire party. I'll pay for the entire party. I mean, my sense is these are wealthy people, so this is a fancy party. He's willing to pay for the entire party? Amar le lo. Says no. Nakta biyadei, takes him bodily. So he takes him by the hands. Va'okmei va'afke, and leads him up, stands him up, and makes him leave. So he bodily expels him. It's not just that he gets up, the guy's forced to get up and leave. He is bodily expelled from the party by the host. Okay? Amar. When it says Amar, it's an internal dialogue. Bar Kamsa is talking right now. The person who was expelled, he says, Ho'il v'have yatvan rabanan v'lo machube. Because there were rabbis at this party. So there were rabbis who were spiritual leaders at the party, and they didn't protest what happened. So they didn't protest my humiliation. Shmamina kanicha lahu. It must be that they were okay with that. They were okay with this my own public humiliation. So now his anger goes from the person who humiliates him, which is the owner of the house, the host. It goes to the rabbis. And actually from the rabbis it goes to society as a whole, because he's assuming, wrongly in many ways, that the rabbis are really the dominant spiritual leaders of the society. I'm joking a bit. In fact, they are at this point. And there's, he at least, and this is his point of view, he's discovering in some ways a very profound moral failing on behalf of the rabbis. Here was a humiliation that they could have protested and they didn't.
Is that a Talmudic rule, if you will? That is that if they see it happening and they stand by, then therefore they must.
Well, let's say it wouldn't take that much of a leap to say that it would be a rule. It's not written anywhere. If you see someone expelled from a party, protest. But two things. So certainly intervening if someone is being hurt. It's not just in the Talmud. That's in the Torah, and also the profound seriousness of humiliation, public humiliation. You have that all through. It's almost a mania. It's almost an obsession of the rabbis, how really serious humiliation is. And you're going to see it turns into maybe the central theme of the story.
But it's the failure to act, condoning the act?
Yeah.
Condoning? Okay.
Yeah. Failure to intervene. Yeah. Okay. But now, think of his reaction. There are very few good guys in the story, by the way. I'm not sure there are any good guys in the story. But as we go through it, we'll try to understand really what the story is most supposed to make us think. So he says, Azel, because of this, because the rabbis who were the spiritual, also political leadership in Judea at the time, in Jerusalem, Azel, I will go, I will go and accuse them of treason with the emperor. Apparently, there are also elements in the story that you have to suspend disbelief that seem difficult to imagine it would really happen. But apparently, he has some kind of in on with the emperor. I will go now and convince the emperor, who's in Rome, far away, that the Jews are rebelling. The Jews are committing treason. So he concocts this plot, which we're going to read in a second. Yeah.
Even to compound this, I would imagine if this person had accepted the invitation, he's wondering, why am I being invited? Perhaps it's sort of thing.
Right, sure, it could be.
He arrives and is even
to be humiliated.
worse than
Right.
he had anticipated.
Right, no, I think that's a logical inference from the story. Why does a guy show up to the party?
Right.
Probably because he thought it was an act of reconciliation.
Right.
That, okay, we're going to make up finally. And that certainly that compounds his anger and his resentment. Not only is it not reconciliation, you're making it worse. You're publicly humiliating me.
On the other hand, what you're leading to sounds like the first guy who invited him was right about this character.
The first guy didn't invite him.
It's a subtle story. It's a subtle. Who accidentally invited him? Right? Because now, I mean, I don't think it's. I don't think it's past the essence of the story to say Bar Kamsa now overreacts because he got humiliated by a story. He's going to involve the Roman emperor.
It seems that because of the rabbi's reaction or the society's reaction, I mean, he was not a well-accepted person.
He was really humiliated. I mean,
Well, he was.
But so both of what you're saying is true. We're certainly seeing a very dark side to him. A dark and vengeful side. Although, it could be, the straw that broke the camel's back. Maybe it was a series of humiliations, and this was it, and he just lost it. Although this isn't a temper tantrum, because this is a plot that has to be developed over at least a trip to Rome. I mean, he's got to get from Jerusalem to Rome to make this work. So it's a burning rage.
Actually,
Sorry?
it's all about him.
Yeah.
And not the consequences. I mean, he's more important than anything else. The one who's been offended.
So let's keep going. So I want to at least finish the story. So Azal Amar Lila Caesar. Somehow he gets to see the king, Caesar. The Caesar, just the Roman emperor. He gets to see him. It's cute to me that they don't tell us how. Like, how did he get in? When did it happen? Does he know him? Yeah, he's got connections. And he says to him, Mardu Bach Yehudai. He says, the Jews are rebelling against you. It's important to understand, at this point, they're not. Now, this is where I tell you, it's very interesting because an historian is going to say, well, of course they were. There was a rebellion.
Yeah.
But so the Talmud is not even recognizing that there wasn't a rebellion. The rabbis are saying, no, the rebellion starts here with this trivial incident at a party. Amar le mi emar. So now the emperor says, who told you that? How do you know? Mi emar is, again, just a phrase. Literally it means, what are you talking about? But it means that the understanding is that, how do you know? Mi emar. So Amar le.
Bar Kamsa not a Jew?
No, they're Jews. They're Jews. He's a Jew. Kamsa, Bar Kamsa, it's all Jews. Yeah. The only person that's not a Jew in the story is the Roman Empire, the Roman emperor, which becomes important. You'll see. That becomes important too. Send them a sacrifice, an animal to sacrifice. If they're loyal. So the implication is, if they're loyal, they're going to say, oh, thank you, great emperor, for this sacrifice, and we will sacrifice it, because a sacrifice could mean lots of things. But in general, it meant like a celebration for our God. The God of Israel. It's our temple, the God of Israel. And the Roman Empire is showing us great respect by offering a sacrifice. Now, there was a sacrifice that was offered in the temple every day on behalf of the Roman Empire, because the Roman Empire was the sovereign, and we are required, a lot of people don't realize this, we're required as Jews to make a blessing, a prayer every day for the government, which we do in our daily prayer. And that's, by the way, why the joke in Tevye is funny. Remember where somebody asked the rabbi, is there a blessing for the czar?
Yeah.
May God bless and keep the czar far away from us. But it's really funny because there is supposed to be a blessing for the czar, because it goes back to this, where you're supposed to give a blessing for the sovereign, because in general the sovereign keeps everybody safe. So you want them to be safe and fair, so you say a prayer. And by the way, it's very interesting. There are prayer books from 1938 Germany where you have a prayer for the government.
And we have it every
for
Saturday.
for Adolf Hitler. Yeah, I mean, it was really, and it's not as if he was in there reading the prayer book, but the tradition, of course, they didn't know it was going to happen. By 1939, I'm sure they weren't praying for Adolf Hitler, but in 38, there were still synagogues in Germany that were making that prayer because it's a Jewish custom to pray for the government. And it's an issue of when it becomes an oppressive government, which we don't have in the United States. And by the way, for most of the Roman occupation, they didn't have either. There was really only episodics, periods where Roman became oppressive, very oppressive. This is one of them. But for a lot of that period, they weren't oppressive anyway. So send them a sacrifice, chazet I mikarvano, and just see if they accept it or not. All right, if they reject a sacrifice from you, the Empire of Rome, that means they're rebelling, right? Because it shows that they should have no respect for you. Okay, but he's plotting something. Azal shadar biyadei aglat plata. So he sent a sacrifice. So it convinces them, and he sends them an animal, a fine animal. It's interesting. Plata means the third, but it means like there's grades of beef. There's grade A, B, and C, where C is the best. So he sends them the best possible cow to be sacrificed in their temple. Bahade dekate shade be muma baniv sfatayim. So Bar Kamsa, sneaks in a little mum. A mum is a flaw, a defect in the animal. In right here in the cleft of the lip, the dent in the lip. Why there? Because you won't be able to see it. Now, who's going to be able to see it? The priests that are offering the sacrifices. Because, in the Torah, you're not allowed to offer a sacrifice that has any defect at all. So he puts a blemish on it, but a blemish it's very hard to see. V'amrele, and some people, this is also interesting in storytelling, some people who tell the story, beduking sheba'aying. Some people say it's in the white of the eye. Also a place where you wouldn't be able to see it. Now, a very important line for all the stories. Duchta delidan humuma uledidhu lav mumahu. Okay, in a place where for us that's lididan, it would be considered a defect, but lididhu for them it would not be considered a defect. Okay, so now what we're learning here is there's a difference between Roman culture, Greco-Roman culture, and Jewish culture. Lots of differences, but one of those is what we consider a defect, they don't necessarily consider a defect. What we consider something that would disqualify an animal, they think is just narishkeit. They wouldn't say narishkeit, right? They would say it's nothing. And by the way, it could be vice versa too. What the Romans consider a defect, we wouldn't consider a defect. So what we're pointing to is, and this is very important, subtle but important, right here in the story, it's opening the door to the fact that when two cultures encounter each other, there is a very strong possibility of misunderstandings. Because what one culture considers sacred, the other culture doesn't consider sacred, and vice versa. And even the smallest thing, like a little dent on a lip, could be the source of a major cultural misunderstanding. Okay? And Bar Kamsa is aware of that. And he decides, he puts a little thing on, something that they're going to think is nothing, but we're going to think is a big deal.
You mean to tell me they sent this cow all the way from Italy to Rome?
Yeah. All the way from Italy to Israel.
Couldn't find. They couldn't find a local cow.
Well, but he's in Rome. The emperor's in Rome. Yeah.
You could say
It's part.
the cow.
It's part of his. Yeah. Well, first of all, we don't want to overanalyze the story too much. Right. Because then you're going to get into, did the story really happen or not, or is it just the concoction of a storyteller?
Right.
Yeah. So and what I'll say right away, it seems unlikely it happened. So we have a storyteller that's trying to say something. So there's a suspension of disbelief. It's also like asking, how did this guy possibly know personally the Roman Empire? How many Jews knew the Roman Empire one-on-one that you could get in and have a conversation with him? No, it took Josephus a long time. Anyway, Savur Rabbanan Dekruve Mishum Shalom Machut. So the rabbis, they see the animal and they also see the defect, but they decide we should sacrifice this anyway. Why? Because of Shalom Machut. You've heard of Shalom Bayit, where you keep the peace of the house. Shalom Machut is you keep peace in the kingdom. Okay, there's a defect there, but we're going to ignore the defect because, guys, this is from Rome. This is from the emperor. So and it's just a little defect. So let's sacrifice it anyway. Amar lahu Rabbi Zechariah ben Avkulas. So Rabbi Zechariah, who was a priest and a rabbi, and a person responsible for making halachic decisions in the temple, says, Yomru, but then they will say, they meaning it will get out, word will get out, Bale mumin kruvin legabe mizmeach, People are going to say, these people in the temple sacrifice animals with defects. So our reputation will be hurt. And he's being scrupulous with the law. We can't make exceptions. Not only for the Roman, even for the Roman Empire. Right. And by the way, showing no disrespect to the Roman Empire, but because it's very important that we stick to our rules. If we don't stick to our rules, word will get out, they don't stick to the rules, and all hell will break loose. That's his argument. And they listen to his argument. But then they go on, Savur lemikatle. They have a very simple solution. We'll kill Bar Kamsa. Bar Kamsa apparently is lurking. Because he wants to see. He wants to report back to the empire. See, they didn't sacrifice your animal. He wants to be there to see it. Maybe he got sent along with the cow and with the calf, and Caesar said, "You go and see." So they decide, well, it's very simple. We'll kill Bar Kamsa, and then I don't know. We'll lie. We'll tell the emperor we sacrificed them. We'll cover it up. That's an interesting solution, right? At that point, when you think back, you think probably would have been better to sacrifice the animal. Yeah. And but in this, but at the same time, look, why not kill him, right? Because the consequences are going to be thousands, hundreds of thousands of people could be killed if he gets out and tells on us. But Amar le Rav Zechariah ben Akulus, Amar le Rabbi Zechariah Yomru Matil Mum Bekudoshim Yehareg. So Rav Zechariah says, wait, you're telling me the penalty for putting a little dent in an animal is the death penalty? We can't kill him. We've got no legal justification for killing. So Rav Zechariah says we've got no legal justification at all to sacrifice the animal, and we've got no legal justification to kill this guy. We're stuck. We can't. That's Rav Zechariah's point of view. Yeah. Which, in retrospect, we actually have retrospect because the person who told the story told it a long time afterwards. So I'm going to read it. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Yochanan, who lives in the 4th century. This takes place in the year 70. So Rabbi Yochanan says, hundreds of years later, Anavotav shel Rabbi Zechariah ben Apkius, because of, now I think your translation is going to say the scrupulousness of Rabbi Zechariah. So it doesn't really mean that. It could mean that, but it means, anav is modesty. Because of the modesty of Rabbi Zechariah. Because Rabbi Zechariah was so modest that he would stick to the law and not try to improvise on what to do. But not, it's a hard word to translate. Scrupulousness will work also. But because of his sticking strictly and totally to the law, right? Rigidity? Good, yeah. Although it's rigidity in the sense of, really, the word does mean modesty, humility. So humility in the face of the law. I'm not going to improvise in the face of the law. But it turns into rigidity, right? It
almost goes counter to what the whole Talmud's about.
Well, let's finish the story. Hechriva et beitenu, v'sarfa et hechalenu, v'higlitana me'artzenu. Because of whatever you want to call it, his scrupulousness, his rigidity, his humility, our house was destroyed. Our house, meaning the Bait, the temple was destroyed. Sarfa et hechalenu, our great hall was burned. Higlitanu me'artzenu, we were exiled from our land. Okay, that's the end of the story.
Yeah.
All right, so
it's just filled with interesting things.
It is. It's an amazing story, and that last line is filled with incredible regret. It says howl of regret. Right, and remember, it's the first line is very important because of a kamsa and a bar kamsa, because of something trivial, and in the end, because of Rav Zechariah, his rigidity, whatever you want to call it, we lost everything. And even Rabbi Yochanan at that point wouldn't have known the depths of the misery of exile, the Spanish Inquisition, the Holocaust, everything that came because of exile. And this Rabbi Yochanan is the 4th century. It got much worse. Yeah.
I feel bad for one person. When you refer to this story, you say Kamsai and Bar Kamsai. Kamsai was never at the party and nothing.
I know, you're right.
He didn't get an invitation.
Yeah, you're right. Poor guy.
Maybe he was the one who was really...
And the ultimate irony is when I tell the story, I still get the two names mixed up. Who's Kamsa and who's Bar Kamsa. So
Which is the bad guy?
We still don't know, right? We're going to continue a discussion of this next week.
It almost gives a justification.